Now, the Economic Freedom Fighters, that's the EFF, has condemned Israel's naval interception of the Global Sumud Flotilla. This comes after detaining South African activists that include Zukiswa, Wanner and Nkosi, Zwelivelile, Mandla, Mandela. According to reports, Israeli forces intercepted at least 39 vessels and detained dozens of crew members of the flotilla. Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa, in a statement, has called on the government of the State of Israel to release South Africans and other nationals abducted as part of Israeli authorities' interception of the Global Sumud Flotilla. To talk more about this and other matters, we are joined by the EFF Head of International Relations, Nqobile Mhlongo. A pleasure having you. Thank you very, very much for your time.
Good morning, Leanne, and the listeners of SABC. It's very important for us to be here because we are really worried about the people who are part of the Sumud Flotilla who have now been captured by the apartheid Israeli forces. While they are carrying hope for millions of people, the 2 million people who are in Gaza, those people in the Sumud Flotilla were carrying only baby formula, disposable nappies, food, and medication. How then do you attack such people who are not posing a threat to anybody?
That it certainly is the word coming in from many nations around the world who have also nationals on board, and very high-profile nationals at that. So we know that you've strongly condemned this this interception. Perhaps you'd like to describe a little bit more the state of what you believe is illegal, what they're doing, and also something that is once again against Gaza. Perhaps just talk to us about the EFF stance on all of this.
You will know, Leanne, the EFF has always been in solidarity with the people of Palestine, and we really believe that what is happening in Gaza, it is not a war. Gaza has been besieged. A war is between two equal states. What is happening in Gaza is that Gazan people of Palestine have been besieged by Israel. They can't do anything for themselves. They can't fight because they've been disarmed. They've been repossessed. Their land has been forcefully repossessed from them. But also, what is happening now with intercepting this flotilla is really uncalled for. It's an indictment on the character of Israeli, on how they behave. They don't care. They've got no regard for human life or human dignity. They are stopping aid from reaching people of Palestine. Why? Because they fake aid that they've set up in Palestine, they use it to lure Palestinians in so that when they run to those fake aid stations that they've put up as Israel in Palestine, they kill and bomb people who are looking for food, people who are looking for medical attention, even children, they are being killed. So what the apartheid state of Israel seeks to achieve, they want to wipe off the face of the surface of the earth the people of Palestine, and the world must not stand idly and watch and keep quiet. We are calling on all nations to cut all diplomatic ties and trade relations with the apartheid state of Israel, because there's no sane nation that will want to have trade relations and any diplomatic ties with Israel. Any trade relation you have with Israel, you are helping Israel to fund, to continue to kill the people of Palestine. So we're asking the rest of the world to stand up against the bullying of the apartheid state of Israel. This is about humanity. When they are done with Palestine, who are they coming for? All the crisis in the Middle East is created by the apartheid state of Israel. We must stand up to their bullying and call them out. All of us as nations across the world stand up against the bullying of Israel.
So obviously we're hearing this. You're asking for a lot, including sanctions. That's something that you have mentioned. You've also called on Italy, Spain, Greece, obviously South Africa as well. I'll get to that in a short while, to take a firm stand against Israel. So perhaps you want to tell us a little bit more of what you think the world should be doing to take a stand.
The world should be imposing economic sanctions on Israel. That's number one, and isolate Israel. Number two, international law must be implemented by all nations. Benjamin Netanyahu has been declared a war criminal. Anywhere he goes must be arrested. Number two, Benjamin Netanyahu must never be allowed to fly in any space, airspace of any country. He should be banned. He should be only stationed in Israel, where he can perpetuate this genocide that he wants. We must stop him on his genocide by ensuring that he's not able to fly out and leave Israel. Israel must be isolated from the rest of the world. No one must trade with them. No one must have any relations with Israel up until there's freedom and peace in Palestine. That should be a condition. And we call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, unconditional ceasefire, not the gimmicks that are portrayed by Donald Trump, an unconditional ceasefire. The people of Palestine have a right to self-determination. They must have a right to determine what happens to them in their country. And we must recall that this is not a besiegement that began 7 October. It's a besiegement that began in 1948. Palestine must go back to the territory. All the occupied territories of Palestine must go back to Palestine. Palestine must be an independent state that is able to self-determine, and its people are able to self-determine and choose a government that they want and be free in their land, not being killed on a daily basis like what we've seen currently happening in Gaza and anywhere, everywhere else in Palestine.
Just finally on this issue, in terms of South Africa's stance through this entire time, because I mean we do know that South Africa have taken a very definite stance on how they feel about this, even taking Israel to the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. And this is the reality of what we have been doing, trying to stop what's going on. Do you think that South Africa should be doing more, particularly in light of what we've seen occur over this week?
Definitely, South Africa should be doing more. You will recall, Leanne, that 2 years ago, the Economic Freedom Fighters sponsored a motion in Parliament for South Africa to cut trade relations with Israel, and for the Israeli embassy to close in the city of Tshwane and their economic office to close in the city of Johannesburg. To this day, that parliamentary resolution has not been implemented by President Ramaphosa. When he's asked about it, he says he's still looking at how to implement it. 2 years later, he has not implemented a resolution of parliament. Really, that's a resolution emanating from the 6th parliament. That's how serious Ramaphosa or unserious Ramaphosa takes the work of parliament, because it was a motion supported by a majority of the members of parliament. But we're not surprised by this, because he has now gone into bed and is working with the Democratic Alliance, and you will know the stance of their leader, Helen Zille, says genocide is a big word. They believe there's no genocide in Gaza. So we're not surprised that now Ramaphosa is dilly-dallying into implementing this resolution. But fully we support the stance of South Africa on going to ICJ to take Benjamin and the apartheid state of Israel to task on the genocide they've committed. And there's many countries now that have declared their support and have joined now South Africa in the fight at the ICJ, which is something recommendable. But for now, we call on President Ramaphosa to call all presidents internationally to speak to other nations to ensure that all of them cut diplomatic ties and impose economic sanctions on Israel. Otherwise, the besiegement is going to continue, and people are going to continue to die in Gaza.
Okay, let's leave that conversation there. I want to move on to what's happened this week in terms of the EFF leader, Julius Malema, being found guilty on these charges that date back to 2018, this incident. He has said that he's going to challenge this, that he's going to go firstly to the Supreme Court, and then he will even take it as far as the Constitutional Court. What's happened since the verdict's been given in? He also mentioned outside the court that he wants to bring on Advocate Tembeka Lukaitobi.
Firstly, Leanne, maybe we must really commend the president of the EFF that he has consistently attended the court for 7 years. Even when the magistrate was trying to frustrate him, he consistently showed up in court, not even once as in his court hearing, but also the members of the EFF and the conduct of the members of and supporters of EFF that they've demonstrated in support and respect of the rule of law of this country. There's not been a shedding of blood. There's not been any anarchy in the name of our commander-in-chief because he has been nefariously found guilty by the magistrate at the East London court. So we must really appall that we've got a leader who's able to take society in confidence and calm people and say, not in my name will you burn down this country because I'm found guilty. But also, we're going to appeal the judgment. We're just waiting for the 23rd of January 2026 to hear the judgment. The sentencing, because it's going to be pre-sentencing. Once they're done with pre-sentencing, we're going to appeal this judgment. We're beefing up our legal team. We're bringing in advocating Nqobile. We're prepared to take this matter up to the Constitutional Court. That's where this matter is going to end. We're not going to take a nefarious judgment. You can see that this is a political witch hunt. If accused number 2, it says that he is not guilty of providing a firearm, then this firearm that he's been charged with, where did it come from? It didn't come from the air, it came from somewhere else. You can see that this was a political witch hunt. We have seen it from the beginning by saying that allow Snyman, release Snyman, because we can see we are not after him. The person we are after is our president. And rightly so, look at the timing of this judgment when it's delivered. You will remember earlier this year, Donald Trump called for our president to be arrested in the White House when Cyril Ramaphosa visited. And they kept quiet and never told him that there's laws in this country. A man can't just be arrested. And now that there's a sentencing now on his name, suddenly there's AGOA negotiations are back on the table. So the timing of all of this is very important. We're going to a local government election, and now there's books that are written by our president to tarnish his image. And then we check AfriForum, the people who took our commander-in-chief to court and opened this case. They've now written a dossier. They've made a dossier portraying our leader as somebody who's undesirable, as someone who is violent. What is the violence in all of this? We have not seen any violent member of EFF protesting or causing anarchy because there's this proceedings. For 7 years, we should really be recommended for that.
Nqobile, we can speak to a lot of what you have mentioned, and it's not necessarily sort of where we talk about, I suppose, the violence is that, according to the law, Julius Malema has broken the law by firing this weapon. Some legal analysts say that he has not shown remorse during this entire time, that he did say it was a toy gun, but it was not a toy gun, as has been proved by the courts, and that this is breaking the law. So why is it that your leader is above the law and should avoid the sentencing or should not be held accountable for what he has done, if in fact that is what the law states and you are a law-abiding party?
Then they did not prove beyond reasonable doubt that what he fired was a real gun. We demonstrated to court that what he fired was actually a toy gun, and we brought it to court. And you will recall in the judgment of the magistrate that she says that they cannot prove that the gun of Larry, where was it on the day in question? Accused number 0 that we have previously mentioned in our court proceedings. That there's an accused number 0 that is seen in the video, and no one mentions him, no one brings him to task. We have mentioned that that gun that they say he supposedly used, nobody can account for it. No one can say where it was and be definite sure. In law, you must prove beyond reasonable doubt, and the onus is on the one who is accusing the other to prove beyond reasonable doubt. The commander-in-chief had no onus on him to prove that he's innocent. They had to prove he is guilty, and they failed in that simple task. Okay. We are going to be appealing this, and we are going to Constitutional Court to prove that the judge, the magistrate is not sober. The magistrate was under immense pressure. We don't know from what. We have never seen the spectacle our commander-in-chief was subjected to. Okay. Days of reading a court a judgment. We've never seen it before. It was first of this kind. It was only designed for our commander-in-chief, for him to be frustrated because they wanted to drive a certain narrative. And we're not going to allow that. We're going to continue to build the EFF.
All right, let's leave it there. EFF Head of International Relations, Nqobile Mhlongo, talking to us about Israel's naval interception of the Global Sumud Flotilla, as well as the matter that was handed down this week of the guilty verdict of their leader, Julius Malema, and the next steps in this process.